Today is part 2 of my letter, Dear Elon, and this is point 3. So it's a part 2. The first part was in reference to a job posting that you had, and the requirements and the rules was that everyone was able to submit 3 points, and I only submitted 2 in part 1, so I still have a third point, so everyone gets 3 points. So this is my third point, and it's in reference to Occupy Mars. So with Occupy Mars, so from my understanding, your motive is to expand humanity and expand human consciousness. And you want to do that because you want to uphold humanity and uphold human consciousness and not allow for annihilation of the human race. So you want to mitigate a potential future risk in case Earth gets annihilated. Well, you see that as a potential future risk and you want to mitigate it in order to uphold humanity, and you want to do that by expanding humanity to Mars. And the potential future risk of a catastrophic event to Earth. So with Occupy Mars, I saw this PowerPoint that you had. That's a cool PowerPoint. I like PowerPoints. So with this, one question I had as a side note, do you want women to go? This is the city that you have planned on Mars. I don't know your whole business plan. I haven't seen it. I didn't even know it was Mars. That's why in a previous video I just put Elon's planet. But now that I know that it's Mars and now that I see this, do you want women to go? Yep. Did you show this to women and get their feedback? Hey, what are your thoughts on this city that I'm planning? And if you want women to go and you want women to live here and you want women to bear children, did you get their feedback on this city? Hey, what do you think about this city? Would you like living here? Just curious. But these are words that I have in response to your city. It's a quote from Elton John, Rocket Man. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell, and there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all the science I don't understand, it's just my job 5 days a week. So these are some words that I thought would be applicable to thoughts women might have in reference to this city that you want to build on Mars. I say Rebecca's words because a lot of men would view these words and ascribe a different label. So I'm curious, how do you view it, these words? If a woman was to say this about the city that you're planning on Mars, how would you view it? Would you view this as like, oh, that's just my opinion, that I'm publicly airing grievances? And if I did that, would you say that it's sin? Would you view it as me selfishly thinking about my own preferences, my own wants, not like legitimate needs that women have? Or would you view it as like, I'm just selfishly thinking of my own preferences? Would you view it as complaining, being stubborn, being rebellious, being unruly, just wanting to stir the pot? Would you view it as me expecting too much? There's no Mars city is perfect. If I mention these things about the city that you want to build on Mars, would you respond by viewing it as me expecting too much? And then make known, no Mars city is perfect. Or would you view it as helpful wisdom from above, worth taking to heart, so that everyone doesn't die? How would you view it if I said these things at like a meeting in reference to the city that you're planning to build on Mars? How would you view it? Because right now I have it titled just Rebecca's words. So I don't know if you would say like Rebecca's opinion, Rebecca's counsel, Rebecca's good counsel, Rebecca's worldly wisdom. Rebecca's wisdom from above, how would you view it if someone was to say this about, if they were to express these thoughts in reference to your Mars city? Also, I would rather follow a kind man to an early death. I say early because I think our allotment of time is determined by God. So early is kind of like, I don't know. I would rather follow a kind man to an early death than a harsh and threatening man to a prolonged life, constantly living under the roof of fear of death, where treatment and care is conditional. So, and my reason for that is, death is inevitable. And I mention this because of your interview with one of your employees on her podcast, Katie Miller Pod, where she comments that she thinks you're very kind, and she has never heard you yell at any employee. So if that's how you rule and carry out your authority, and this is the mission you want to lead people to, even if the result, the end of this mission is an early death, like it's not feasible, we're gonna die, even if that was the case, I'm going. I would rather follow you to Mars because of who you are as a man and how you carry out your authority, than like stay here and follow a man of different character where it's like, yeah, we have, sustained lives, but it's like with that life, we're constantly living under the roof of like fear of death. We have a prolonged life, but it's always like, are we going to die? Where it's like following you, it's like, yeah, we're going to die in, 10 years time, but it's not like, are we going to die tomorrow? Am I going to get kicked out? Am I going to da-da-da-da? I would rather follow you to Mars knowing that we have enough resources to last us 15 years and that's when we're going to die, and not have to worry about fear of death in the in-between, than stay here with like resources to sustain life, but it's like constantly living under the fear of death because of who the rulers are here. So I have to say, I can't say one without the other. Yeah. Yep. More on kindness. What is desirable in a man is his kindness, and it is better to be a poor man than a liar. And that's all based off of the character and nature of God in Luke 6:35 through 36. Love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. For he himself is kind to ungrateful and evil men. So, because your character is more in conformity to the character and nature of God and how you rule over your employees, I would rather be under your rule on Mars than under the rule of the men here on Earth. Also, for transparency, and I guess I wrote this earlier and then I put the stuff on kindness later, so I guess this doesn't really make sense after what I just said in regards to the kindness stuff about Elon, but when I was writing my PowerPoint, this is how I felt, and then later I put the kindness thing in, so I guess I don't really feel this way now, but I'm still going to say it. So for transparency, this is terrifying. Addressing a man in a position of power in reference to his work, his rule, his authority, or himself is often perceived to be a threat and viewed as an attack. Going to a man and making comments like this, well, oftentimes it's interpreted as attack and as a threat, and provokes them to anger. Yeah. And the response you get from them is some form of violence. It's like you're being driven out and cut off, which was the case with like ecclesiastical congregations here on, on earth. If people in positions of religious authority, it's like their response is that you're driven out or you're cut off, you get disfellowshipped, or you're not being received and taken in. So if you address a man in this way, the response is some form of violence, some form of death. You're driven out and cut off and put outside the camp, or you're not received and you're or taken in. And with Elon being the observable, most powerful man in the world, with saying this to him, I'm risking death. That has been the historical pattern with every man in a position of power when I've approached him with the attempt to do him good in this way. The response is some form of death. So considering the pattern, well, with this, it's like, it's a suicide mission. I'm risking death. And you see that pattern in creation, like the gift of fear, like when you confront someone with greater power, and you can anticipate a violent response, like to perceive that threat, it's like God gives us that fear. If you see that there's someone that's bigger than you in some way and you confront them in a way that is, can be interpreted as an attack, and it's like you can anticipate a violent response of some kind. I think that's how we're created. Those are the instincts that we have. So here, like with A Few Good Men, this is where it's like fear and trembling. Being able to recognize a legitimate threat, perceive it, and it's like you have that fear and trembling, and it's like you still, I don't think people have a right understanding of like courage. But here in like A Few Good Men, where it's like he tells Jack Nicholson to sit down, he commands him, he gives him a command to sit down back in the bench and puts him in, his place. And then after saying that, he turns around and he grabs this water and his hand's like shaking. It's like, that's what courage is. It's not like, I'm not afraid of him. It's having a recognition of that fear of this man is more powerful, this man can retaliate, this can earn me, I'm going to pay for this later. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's like courage is rightfully recognizing the death threat and acting anyways. That's what courage is. So you see it with in this scene where he goes up against Jack Nicholson and gives him that commanding order to sit down, and then he turns around and he grabs the water and he's like shaking it, takes a drink. So you see it here with Tom Cruise in A Few Good Men, and then you also see it in this one when Elon Musk tells his advertisers who are trying to blackmail him to go fuck yourself. And then he says, "Hi, Bob." And I think Bob was the CEO of Disney. So, and you have the same response, Elon. After saying that, you reach for the glass of water and your hand is like trembling. So you have like that fear and trembling because it's like you rightly perceive the threat of the other person. It's not like, courage isn't like, oh, I'm not afraid of them. Courage is like, no, I have good reason to be afraid of them, and it's acting anyways, going up against the opposition. So like some people might view this and be like, oh, he's weak. He's afraid, he's timid, he's weak. Look at it, look at him trembling. But it's like, no, this is what makes him brave. This is what makes him courageous. It's rightfully perceiving the fear and then acting out boldly, anyways. So I like this interview for that reason, because you're courageous. more on the fear of death. That's like this guy when he's talking about John Wick, and he's like, I'm not afraid of him. That makes you a fool. That makes you a fool. Like, you should be afraid of John Wick. To be like, oh, I'm not afraid of him, like thinking that makes you courageous. No, that makes you a fool. Dismissing what you ought to be afraid of makes someone a fool. That doesn't make them courageous. To say like, I'm not afraid. It's courageous when it's like, no, you should be afraid. You should rightfully be afraid. And you're acting, you're speaking, or you're acting, you're overcoming that fear. That's what courage is. I haven't seen that with any man on earth today. That's the only time that I've seen actual courage displayed from a man on this planet today. Your interview, Elon. There's so much stuff like this. Yeah, all the little details. More on fear of death and courage and overcoming. I put these texts, 1 John 4, verses 4 through 5, and John 16, 33. So, and it's like John 16, 33, take courage, I have overcome the world. So it's like courage, encouragement, and it's like with those examples, it's like you reach for physical water, and it's like that's the proper response for like taking courage in light of fear. So I just like that example. And like there, it's like you perceive a physical threat, and you reach for physical water, but there's also like spiritual, there's spiritual water, there's spiritual encouragement that people reach for in light of fear as well. So with like the trials and tribulations that they face. So I thought that was cool. And then I put this screenshot. It was from these videos I made on my dad, but it references a text from Acts 14 with Barnabas, where he went around strengthening the souls of the disciples, encouraging them to continue in the faith, and saying, through many tribulations, we must enter the kingdom of God. So, and I put this because it has that space themed, ad astra per aspera, to the stars through difficulty, hardship. So, but it's like spiritual instead of physical. Yep. As a side note, in the last video, I mentioned how I didn't have a fear of rejection. It turns out I did have a fear of rejection, but not in respect to friendship. It was in respect to working together. So after I made part 1 with my 2 points, I made my video and I emailed it, and I got this back. And I was thankful for the quick response, but it was a rejection. They were not interested. That's okay. That's okay. But it hurt. I wasn't, it revealed that I did have, a fear of rejection, but it was in regards to working together, not in respect to like the friendship attempt. But since I was rejected then, it's like, well, I don't have that fear since I was already rejected once with the 2 points. Now I don't have that fear of rejection now because it already happened in regards to working together. So I've overcome that. Yeah. But, being rejected in regards to collaboration attempts with men in positions of power over their kingdoms, that's also been the historical pattern. So it was kind of the anticipated response, but I don't know. This is from this video. It was talking to Jeff Johnson, and he's a religious leader with a church and a seminary and a publishing company. And in that video, I suggested, I made this proposal about a new book that me, him, and Jason Lyle could collaborate on, for him to publish and I didn't care who got the proceeds. And it was about knowing God through creation. This was a book that I wanted to do with them, and I didn't get a response. They weren't interested in collaborating with me with my ideas for books. Jason Lyle, he's like, that's the one that I don't understand the most. I don't understand the most because I was on his emailing list and he was sending out things about how his ministry was low on funds and that he was looking to generate, income with some, upcoming projects. So I was like, oh, if we collaborate on this book deal, well, I don't care about the proceeds. He could receive the proceeds. So I thought it could be a means through getting his ministry the money that it needs. So I had no idea why he wouldn't want to pursue this project with me. Other than the book it'd be a shared space on the book with our 3 names together. I think if I made a financial donation to his ministry, he would gladly accept that help. But I don't know why he didn't want to accept this form of help as a means to generate income, other than he didn't like the idea of having our 3 names on the book. So it just makes me think that he's not seeking to build the kingdom of God. He wants to make a name for himself. If he has selfish ambition with his ministry and his projects and his books, and he only wants his name to be in that space, I don't think it's like he's building the kingdom of God. I think he's ultimately, all of his work is motivated to make a name for himself, to bring himself glory. Otherwise, why wouldn't you want to do this project? It's like you don't want to share the space where the names go. I think that's it. I don't understand. But I did some of my books anyways. They're coloring books. It's about knowing God through creation, Earth and the moon. And then I put this verse, Elon, because in past interviews you said, I believe in the Creator, God is the Creator. So here's a text where that title is used in Scripture. Therefore, those who also suffer according to the will of God shall entrust their souls to a faithful Creator in doing what is right. So it's just so bizarre how Elon can have a confession of faith where he's like, I believe in the Creator. I believe God is the Creator. And people are like, so you don't believe in God? You just believe in this Creator? And it's like, God, that's a title God uses for himself. A faithful Creator. Maker, Creator, origin and source. And it's like, Elon confesses faith in God with the title Creator. And it's like, people think you don't believe in God. I just don't understand it. And it's like, it's like they find fault because you don't confess Jesus or whatever. But it's like, the way I see it, you're not guilty of blasphemy. That's how I see it. Whereas everyone else is confessing faith in God and faith in Jesus, and we're disciples of Jesus and we're Christians, they're making this confession, but they're taking Jesus' name in vain, and they're taking God's name in vain, and they're guilty of blasphemy. And God says, I will not hold him guiltless who takes my name in vain. So it's like everyone's finding fault that you're not confessing certain names of God, and it's just because you're free of blasphemy. They're confessing these titles, but they're taking those titles in vain. They're guilty of blasphemy. That's how I see it. So, with Occupy Mars, your motive, expanding humanity, upholding, So, very good motives, very good godly, manly motives. You're exercising manly dominion. So, Genesis 1:29, Adam and Eve, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it, and rule over the fish of the seas, and over the birds and the sky, every living thing that moves. So to want to expand and subdue, well, that motive is godly and manly, and you want to expand to Mars and subdue, but it's the same commands and desire as people wanting to expand and subdue Earth. You're operating at type 3 of the Kardashev scale. You're at like universe. You want to have dominion over the universe, instead of type 1, where it's like dominion over the Earth. So you're just far advanced, Elon. You're just ahead of the curve. So I love your motive and your work. But in regards to, so the work is all motivated off of a potential catastrophic event happening to Earth. So in regards to like future catastrophic events happening on Earth, if that's something to be concerned about, well, God typically gives a warning. God loves humanity, so when there are catastrophic events, he sends messengers or angels or aliens with a warning of saying like, hey, this catastrophic event that's gonna affect Earth and human lives. Well, if that is something, if that threat is preeminent, well, God will send an angel and a messenger to give warning so that humanity can prepare for that catastrophic event. And it's like either get out or prepare. So like with Sodom and Gomorrah, it's like the angels were sent to Lot and it was like, get out. But there's other examples where it's like, hey, this event's gonna happen, you should prepare. Yep. So here it is in reference to famine, Acts 11. I don't think I have the reference right. But one of the prophets began to indicate by the Spirit that there would certainly be a great famine over the world. So then they, took up a collection to prepare. And then another instance with famine with Genesis 41. This is with Joseph interpreting the dream. There's going to be 7 years of famine. Let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain for food in the cities under Pharaoh's authority and let them guard it. So with the famine coming to Egypt, like there was a warning to prepare for it. There's going to be 7 good years. You should harvest and store up and prepare, and then you can use that in the 7 years of famine. So with these events, God sends a messenger and there's a warning so that people can prepare. And then, with like spiritually, warnings for men to repent and worship God, there's only so many certain warnings, and then it's like men, they don't give heed to warnings, and then it's like sudden destruction comes. So where it's like they're mockers and scoffers, they receive the warning, but then it's like, they're mockers and they're scoffers and they dismiss it. And then after, so many rejected warnings, it's like, boom, sudden destruction comes. Like in the last days, like, where's the promise of his coming? Mockers and scoffers. And then it's like, sudden destruction comes. So with Occupy Mars, based off of this motive, off of a potential catastrophic event to Earth, I believe this is an irrational fear. Because to prepare without having first received a warning is irrational based off of the historical pattern that I've observed with God and knowing his character and nature. Like if it was a legitimate fear we should be concerned about, he would send an angel and tell us so that we could prepare for it. So I believe this is an irrational fear of yours, and I phrase it this way because of your interview with your coworker, where you said once you realize you have an irrational fear, you squash it. You reason your way out of not having that fear. So I believe your motive for pursuing Occupy Mars, one of them is if the motive is, a potential fear, I think that's irrational. But you can still have the dream of occupying Mars with the motive of expanding humanity without the motive of fear of death. So I'm not saying like this whole effort is dumb because your motive is based off this fear, which is irrational. So like the whole thing is a waste and you shouldn't do this anymore. I think if there are like, typically people have multiple motives that play in towards why they want to do something. And if this is one of them, I'm just saying I think this one's irrational. But if you have other motives for wanting to do this, full speed ahead, let's do that because of the other motives. So, but I want to point out, if the fear wasn't a reality, would you still want to pursue this for other reasons? You would have to decide that. I'm just letting you know. Just more comments in regards to Occupy Mars. Well, I don't think man can make Mars habitable. I think God can make Mars habitable. And I think expansion to a new planet would occur only after we've been faithful with exercising dominion over our current planet. So with Occupy Mars, you're saying, we would have to terraform Mars and make it sustainable and make it habitable. I don't think man has the power to do that, but I know God has the power to do that. And if he were to do that, it would only happen after we've exercised faithful dominion over this planet that he has already made habitable for humans. So once we're faithful with exercising dominion over this planet, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, now we can move on to another planet. It doesn't make sense to want to exercise dominion over a different space where it's like, there's that work here. We can do that work here. And then do another level. So I think the route to occupying Mars, well, I think you would want to focus on occupying Earth, then occupy Mars. So if occupy Mars is the goal, I think to get there, you would need to first occupy Earth, and then that would take us to occupying Mars. Technically, Mars is a star. Jude, verse 13, it talks about wandering stars. That's in reference to the planets, where it's like their courses don't follow the courses of the constellations. They don't submit to like the other, everyone else's pattern and course. And he's talking about false teachers, how there's like, they're disorderly, they're not in submission to God. They're going the wrong way. So he uses that as a parable to talk about how false teachers aren't, they're just like wanderers. You shouldn't follow them. You shouldn't, be led astray by unprincipled men. And he uses the planets as like an example, how they're not in submission to the constellations. And he, calls them wandering stars. So planets are technically a star. And Venus is referred to as the bright morning star. So, yep. And then with occupying Mars, I don't think man can make Mars habitable. God can make it habitable, and God would have to convert it from a star to a planet. He could do it as a reward for occupying Earth. If as a society and a civilization we were able to successfully exercise dominion over Earth, well, that could be a reward. It's like now he converts Mars. But if Mars is just like the best option and, you would want to move to a second planet, I think the laws of physics would be that instead of converting Mars, it would be a new planet close to Earth so that you have like a binary planet system that kind of functioned as one planet. I think you would have to add to Earth and make it a binary planet system because of how the physics in the universe in order to maintain balance. And I think that would be easier for humanity also to have You know, if we were a multiplanetary species, it would be easier if those planets were close together. It's starting to rain, so that's why hopefully I'll try to go quick. So I think, here's an idea: occupy Earth. That would be step one on the path to occupy Mars, per the Kardashev scale, which you subscribe to. You've confessed this scale. These are, you say that you subscribe to this scale, you've confessed this scale. Well, I think you should submit to this scale. And if you want to occupy Mars, well, step one on the laws that you confess would be that you would have to occupy Earth first and then occupy Mars. Occupy Earth would be type 1, and then if Mars is a star, well, that's type 2. So if these are the laws and principles that you confess, I think you should submit to them. And not be a unprincipled man. And stuff like this, as a warning, is can be very triggering to me for my past, where it's like you have domineering men that think commands only go downwards. So they speak these commands as if they're convictions, but they don't follow them. They're not actually convictions. These are just words. They're arrogant words. They're empty words. They're vain words. They're not in submission to them. They speak them as convictions over others, but by their works, it shows that they're not into submission to themselves. So it's like, and in Hebrews, it says that disobedience is evidence of unbelief. So, like, in regards to religious leaders, like, if you don't obey your words, well, that's just evidence that you don't believe them. And if you don't believe them, why should we believe them? If you're not in submission to your own commands, why should we be in submission to your own commands? If you don't trust you enough to follow you, why should we trust you? You know, how can you expect us to trust you enough to follow you? That might sound rehearsed, because that's what I've said to every man in position of power along the way before I got to here at my Mount Everest with you, Elon. And I'm not going to start being partial now. I'm not going to hold back. I'm not going to withhold from you the truth that I gave to everyone else along the way. And typically, yeah, this was in regards to religious leaders. I've kind of had this, spiel rehearsed, and it's a different sector. But you should just be on guard that you don't become the whitewashed tomb in the energy sector, trying to, yeah. And it might not be that clear, and there are differences. It's not like you hold everyone else to the Kardashev scale while you yourself are not in submission to it. It's not like you're going around with the Kardashev scale telling everyone else that they are evil in the sight of God for not being in submission to these laws that we see in physics, and that they're going to hell because they lack conformity to the Kardashev scale. So you're not there. You're not going around being domineering with the Kardashev scale, telling everyone they're going to hell because they're not in submission to it, while you're being a hypocrite and you're also not in submission to it. So there is a difference. You're not like them. I just see this one thing where it can be triggering, and just, being transparent. If a man says, like, this is a conviction, and then it's like, this is necessary, submission to this law, submission to this order is like the best route, 1, then 2, then 3, for success. This is how we are to operate as a civilization. And it's like, this person is leading us to a certain destination. Well, because of these convictions, when I notice that he's not in adherence to those convictions, it makes it really difficult to trust his words. When it's like he speaks about things with conviction And then it's like, no, it's just really a guidance. It's just really, it's not that important. But it was really important back then when you spoke it over me with conviction. The sky's like really pretty and orange. It's like a sunset, but it's like also really stormy. I'll try to go quickly. So just in the future, I want you to lead our planet to success. So we should all be in, submission to your convictions in regards to laws. And here it's like the laws of physics. It's not like morality, but yep. So I think occupy Earth, that should be added in before occupy Mars. We would have to occupy Earth before we occupy Mars. Per your command, per your laws, per the order that you confess in the Kardashev scale. You should be a man of conviction. If the Kardashev scale is your conviction, well, a reasonable man would be like, yeah, we should occupy Earth and then we occupy Mars. Otherwise, it's like, look like every other man in position of power where it's like, I'm above the law. The rules apply to everyone else but me. These are laws, but I can work outside. I'm above the law. So, and this is like a very like niche thing. It's not the same, but I don't want to be a hypocrite and I don't want to be partial to you and speak peace when there is no peace, when there is like something I think you should be mindful of. I think flattery is insulting. Flattery is a means of gains. So I don't want to like say everything's great and you're doing everything orderly and just affirm you when it's like I see an area of lack that I think should be made known to you. Just to ignore it and say your way is good when it's like that's an insult. And there's like a Proverbs about that where it's like you'll have a counselor where it's like they'll say, oh yeah, your way is good, and then it's like they'll just be watching for your downfall. So I see a way in which your way is not good because you're skipping over Earth and going to occupy Mars. So I don't want to sit idly by and by my withholding it gives the confession that I see nothing wrong with your way. By silence, I'm testifying that I'm in agreement, that your way is good, and I don't believe that, so that's why I'm speaking these things to you. You had one interview where it was like proof of God's existence. So this is more about the Creator and, atheism, agnosticism. Is there objective proof that God exists? So I believe there is objective and observable evidence in creation that prove God exists. And I want to present this because I don't know how other people would see it. When I saw this, it first registered to me as like, this is objective proof. This is verifiable scientific evidence of God's existence. And it's observable fractal patterns in Scripture. So this talks about the books of Luke and Acts, where in Luke's writing, there are observable fractal patterns. And it's like fractal patterns, we see that in physical creation, and then we see it in this body of literature. So it's like if there's a structure that you see in Scripture, and it follows the same structure and pattern that we see in physical creation, I think one can conclude that the origin and source of the writings of Luke and Acts is the same origin and source of creation. If you see fractal patterns in creation and fractal patterns in this body of literature, I think one can conclude that the origin and source is the same. and that those two things, like God exists, and that Luke is inspired. Yeah, starting with that. These are more videos I have in regards to knowing God through creation. As creator, we can know him by the things. He reveals himself through different veils. God is spirit and no one has seen him at any time, but he has made himself known through veils. So like through his word, we can know God through his word. Through creation, through the veil of physical creation, we can know spiritual attributes of who God is, and through Jesus, the veil of his flesh. So through these veils, it's like we can gain information and knowledge of who God is. So I have those videos in regards to that. Knowing God through creation. This video, I talk about God revealing himself in creation. It's unfortunate for Mark Mudge. And this is in reference to Occupy Earth. So with that effort, I talk about crystals and tuning forks. How I think knowledge and understanding of those things could be helpful to humanity and being faithful to exercise dominion over the earth. How can we use tuning forks and crystals, and what benefits can we gain from them with healing? So, and then in reference to like Occupy Mars, you're motivated because you want to expand human consciousness and sustain it. Well, like that can be done as a civilization, but as an individual, like an individual can also expand their own consciousness. So if you have a goal of expanding consciousness, and that's how you can do it with humanity on a large scale, well, I think on an individual level, that endeavor should also be pursued. That individuals should be motivated to expand their own consciousness. And you yourself, Elon, should be motivated to expand your own consciousness as an individual. Instead of working towards expanding human consciousness, I think as an individual, you should also pursue that work in yourself to expand your own consciousness. And that's probably pretty hard, because you probably thought, well, I did do that. I've peaked. Look at where I'm at. So, and it's hard because it's like if you're the highest, you think you've plateaued. There's no drive to go further. So I can understand from your perspective, it's like, what else do I not know? What else is there to know? We've known it all. I've plateaued. I've peaked. There's more ways I can grow in wisdom and understanding and knowledge. You bet, Elon, you bet. So I don't know how you'll view this or how you'll respond. Men in the past, when they perceive someone greater, that results in envy and jealousy, and it moves them to an act of violence and hatred, because it's like, no, I want to be the greatest. So when they perceive someone to be greater, it's like, instead of growing, it's like they want to kill that. They want to kill the competition. But I think you value wisdom and truth and knowledge and understanding far more than your money and your material wealth and stuff like that. You've peaked in regards to monetary wealth. So now when you see like, oh, there's a new, I can grow in wisdom and understanding, it's like another level. Well, now that you've peaked in regards to growing in, monetary power, it's like, oh, I think you would value knowing this, that you can have more wisdom and understanding and breadth of knowledge. I think you'd value that more than your monetary wealth and your monetary power. I think you would rather have the power of intellect versus monetary power. So I think seeing, I can't change how people view me. If it's like, oh, she just wants to prove she's smart, she just wants to whatever. It's like, I know that you enjoy wisdom, and if you knew that there were ways where you could grow in wisdom and understanding, I know that you would want to do that. So it's like, if you, and it's like, I can tell you how to do it. And I've learned a lot of optimization. It involves your money, but I can show you how to use your money so that you get more leverage. And then, you know, it's all based off of love your enemy, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you'll be sons of God. For he is kind, to evil and ungrateful men. So by using your money to do good and love your enemies, expecting nothing in return, that will gain you favor and wisdom with God. Your reward will be great. So I've learned, I've done a lot of experiments. I'm destitute, Elon. I'm like tapped out. It's like, I have my job, I can make money, it'll be fine. But like, I'm poor, I have no money. I'm destitute, but I'm rich in wisdom and knowledge. And it's just a balance of power. You have to choose what, the more that you scale down on your monetary power, you can't hold all the chips, Elon. You can't hold all the chips. Pick a power. Yep, but I can show you my optimization tricks so that you can scale down on your monetary power, and then you can grow in favor and wisdom. And you can be a sorcerer supreme. However you want to phrase it. Magician. Yeah. It's more enjoyable. It's more enjoyable. Be careful what you wish, what you wish for. With much wisdom comes much grief. But it's worth it. You get to know God, and you get to experience God, and you get to experience creation through a new lens. And now it's like, it unlocks a sixth sense. So it's like, just being outside is just more enjoyable. Yeah, like a heightened sense. You don't need the other things. For me, I still want them. I still want my Cybertruck, Elon. I still want the goods of this world, but now it's like, I know that what I have and what I've experienced can't be bought. So I think since you've been rich, I think you would choose, I want, experience life through a new lens. This other stuff doesn't satisfy. Yeah, I want to try that. I think you would want to do that. I think you would value wisdom and knowing God more than the money you can make from your intellect. So, yep. So in regards to expanding personal consciousness, I talk about it in that video. That was the first video that I've posted on YouTube. Was that one. And I posted it a year ago on August 6, 2025. So now I don't know what video this will be, but it's been a year since my first video. So it's like, with this, it's another chiasm, Elon. It's another X. Where it's like, I'm at the end, and it's like I referenced the beginning. So it's like I complete a circuit with this year. This is my trip around the sun. And it's like, with this video, I was so hesitant to start because I'm like, I don't want to look dumb. I need to get my ducks in a row. And then I was like, I know that my content is valuable. I want people to have it. The presentation doesn't matter. If I keep holding off, I'm never going to start. So I just started with like what I had, and it's not good. And maybe I'll remake it. But if I had known that it would take me a year to accomplish my dreams of getting my dream job, hopefully, Elon. If I knew that it would take a year, I just had to start. Well, I would have started a lot sooner, but I was like hesitant to start because I don't know how to do a YouTube video. I need to get the software and the equipment and the setup and all these things. It needs to be polished before I start. And then I'm like, it's not, if that's the case, I'm never gonna start. I'm just gonna start and then polish things as I go. So that's why I started that first video. It's like, hopefully it's encouraging to people. You know, if you have a dream, well, it's not gonna be polished, but just start. And you can polish it along the way. If you knew that it only took a year to, you know, if you were to pursue your dreams, and like with me, it's like, oh, well, she started and it's like, God brought it to completion. It only took a year. Like, if you knew that, wouldn't you start today? You know, like if you knew that you'll get the fulfillment at the end of a year, it's like, would you hold off starting? Or would you start today? Or would you like wait and, you know, wait for everything to be right before you start? Or would you start today? If you knew it's going to take a year regardless, it's like, don't hold back. Don't wait. Don't let your dreams be dreams. It's like dark now. So I don't have a kindly Rebecca. I don't have a close. And people might look at this and be like, did she plan this? You know, she started on August 6, 2025. I'm recording this on August 5th, 2026. It's like, did she plan this whole thing out for the last year? Is she a mastermind? Hashtag Taylor Swift. Did she plan this? Was this her plan the whole time? I'm not going to answer that. No more freebies. I'm not going to tell you what I planned and what I didn't plan and da-da-da-da-da. People can ask if they want to know, including you, Elon. You probably want to know. So you're going to have to initiate and ask me that question. If that's a question you have, here we are. I'm not sure when you're going to see this, if you're going to see this, if you even watch the other two. But if you have that question, like, did she plan this whole thing out a year ago? Well, if your initial thought is that I did, and that helps me get my dream job, I've learned if you correct a man's thinking, that's also a way you can receive an act of violence. So you can believe what you want to believe. If you have a question, you can ask. But, you know, if this point 3, you see, like, here we are a year later, if you believe that demonstrates exceptional ability and mental intellect, and that helps me get my dream job. All I wanted was to grow a man's kingdom. And all the religious leaders, when I was, they did not want that. And Jason Lyle did not want that. All I wanted was to grow a man's kingdom. So if you want to allow me to help you grow your kingdom, everyone didn't want it. But if you're here now and you're like, I think this can be valuable. All she wants to do is grow a man's kingdom. If you want to just allow me to help you grow your kingdom, that's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to have my own kingdom and be above. I don't want to manage that. I just want to help and grow and be a part of something. I don't want to be at the top. So it's too many burdens to bear. Because I know with authority comes accountability. Comes accountability. So I don't want that. I just wanted to help grow a man's kingdom, but men don't like that. But if you're interested now, let me know. Okay. Thanks.